everyone listening right now should stop what they're doing and realize that Shelby Kang was in a horrible accident this week.
That's actually a lie.
I thought I would try to grab everyone's attention right away. If all the podcast listeners that are like, oh no, Shelby, but now we have everyone's attention. I thought starting it a different way would be fun. Was it fun for you?
It may have been more fun if I knew that we were gonna start off.
That's it. See, at least I have your attention now.
There we go.
You had to maybe ask yourself the question for a second, like, was I in a terrible accident?
Well, actually, I was pretty. You did have my attention because I was like, "What is Tyler going to say today?"
You could tell I was thinking for a second. Well, we did talk about on the last podcast about the grabbing people's attention right away if you're shooting video or something like that. And I did see we do video record this podcast now, and I actually saw that clip across social media of us talking about that. And so it reminded me that I wanted to start this podcast a little bit different from normal today.
Well, I'm good for you for using our own advice.
Well, welcome everyone to the Publisher Lab. I'm Tyler Bishop. Alongside me, as always, Shelby Kang. Shelby, what's in the news today?
Yeah, we've actually got a lot going on this week. The first thing I wanted to start with was something from Digiday, and the title is Publishers Are Using Starbucks Wi-Fi Programs to Hunt for New Readers. So these days, newspapers are focusing on eliminating the ways people can circumvent their paywalls. But for some news publishers, they're actually finding that the Starbucks pilot program that launched late last year appears to be kind of an exclusion to that rule. So the test, which began as a response from Starbucks when they decided to stop selling physical newspapers at the stores, lets anybody who logs into the Wi-Fi service at Starbucks access to several different newspapers. So it just gives them an insight to the paywall. So the program launched in October with 7 titles, including the Wall Street Journal and USA Today. I feel like every time I talk about different things, it's always USA Today is doing it. But they also have local titles like the Seattle Times and the New York Daily. And it actually expanded to 23 titles last November. So Starbucks isn't actually paying any of the publishers who are involved in this, but publishers involved said that the program seems to be a good source for new readers. So partnerships like the Starbucks program gives publishers a new way to put their product in front of readers that wouldn't necessarily have gotten to it before, and they also have a lot of time to spend reading it. And so this is hopefully going to form a habit. So while the number of visitors the Starbucks program attracts is small, typically in the low thousands each week for a publisher, they have the qualities that make them attractive to participating publishers. So I just thought I'd share this because it's an interesting and really unique partnership, and a good example of how publishers are really kind of thinking out of the box about gaining new readers.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was really hard last week on Scroll, and I maintain all the things I said about it. But I do think that if publishers are truly committed to making it some type of subscription model work, it would have to probably be in this like guerrilla warfare type of status where you're basically figuring out like where are all the different ways that people are connecting to the internet, accessing content, and how do I basically find a way for somebody to pay for the content other than ad-funded model. I don't think that it's going to work. I do think some of these things are unique and they're great brand opportunities. So like the Wall Street Journal obviously wants to ingrain themselves with a younger audience that will grow up hopefully, seeking out information from them as a credible source or source of news as opposed to, it being labeled as some things like that's how people used to get the news. So partnering with someone like Starbucks to, circumvent the paywall or something like that is a great way to do that, I think. But I don't know that it's how you're going to fund your business. One thing I did look up, which was USA Today, because you mentioned they come up a lot in these types of stories. They're owned by Gannett, which is what I thought. So Gannett owns a good portion of the local newspapers and publications. It's really, really dominant party in the space. And if you think about like local news is definitely something where like a subscription model or something like that would, really help those if they can make it work. So it makes sense that USA Today would be heavily invested in trying to find out like what is going to work. I'm actually, from a standpoint of like thinking about this industry as a whole, I'm for basically big brand enterprise publishers experimenting with all the different ways they can make money, because I actually think that that's how technology and innovation starts, is usually people thinking outside the box. So like, yeah, let them experiment. And then, I think probably all the independent, small, medium, even large publishers that aren't quite, like a USA Today or something, I think we can all probably learn from, the money that they're spending or losing, or hopefully someday gaining from these experiences.
Definitely. The next topic I wanted to talk about today was, you were just talking about original ideas, and this one is a bit of an unoriginal idea, but Google has launched a new app to rival TikTok. So TikTok now has more global downloads than Facebook, and it's on its way to dethroning Instagram, but Google has put their own hat in the ring. So they launched an experimental social video sharing app called Tangi. I want to say it's Tagi. So it's for short 60-second tutorials. So it's being positioned as an app to share and learn new things, all under 60 seconds, through vertical short form videos focused on snackable creativity.
Oh, I hate that word so much.
So to I can't speak.
Happens to the best of us.
Yes. So to set itself apart from TikTok and similar apps, which are more focused on entertainment, Tangi's focus is to help people learn. Google's not alone in kind of creating new apps to rival TikTok. Facebook quietly launched another app called Lasso, and the co-founder of Vine also recently announced that they've launched Byte, which is the successor of Vine, if anyone remembers Vine. So unlike other social video apps, uploading to Tangi isn't open to everybody, so creators have to apply and join the video platform. And this allows Tangi to ensure that their videos remain focused on creativity and DIY activities. So Tangi is already working with a few different creators in the food, beauty, and art space. But I know it's kind of more of a broad digital industry topic, but I feel like it kind of speaks to the style of content that users are really craving right now, which is short form video and super snappy content.
Yeah, and I like how you said snappy, and you diverted from the word snackable. I feel like snackable is a word that gets said at conferences a lot, and it's kind of one of those things that I'm like, what is that? What do you mean? You mean short videos? Okay, great. You mean short content? Like, great. But like, I think snackable gets this like term where it's like very ambiguous and broad, and it's a way for somebody that's trying to sell something to like position it as it could be a lot of things, but trust us, it's something that people are going to want. People love snacks.
That's funny because I actually have never heard of like snackable, but I've heard like consumable content before, so probably along the same lines.
It's like it's like when somebody says something like an integrated consumer experience, and it's like, do you mean like coupons that they get in email? Like, what do you mean? Tell me specifically what strategies or what tactics you're going to use. Because I think a lot of times what happens is people use these platitudinal words to describe things. And so this is a really good example of that. I've been reading a lot recently about short form content and video. And I think one of the things that larger publishers in particular have really struggled with is they've been surprised at how unpopular in a lot of ways, and also the poor ROI that's been produced from a lot of short form video. So a lot of people that have built specific kind of short form episodic stuff and other short form video have really struggled to figure out to like make it work on platforms like Snap, and there's a new one launching, Quibi, but Byte was mentioned in the article as well. And it's fascinating to me from the standpoint of I do think that that's the types of content that people want, but I think that content is they like that content because it's specific to the platforms that they're using in a lot of ways, which are already established. So like Instagram, Snap kind of to a certain extent. But I don't know that people are on Snap and thinking to themselves, I really wish I could watch something episodic here. I think kind of the original intent and the way that platforms get used are the way that people want to use them. So I think coming along with whatever Tangi. Yeah, so we're a Google partner, and I stay up to date pretty good on Google News, and I'd never heard of that, I don't think. Which maybe people are at home are like, this guy just lost credibility with us.
I don't think you're their target audience, Tyler.
Maybe not. It seems that when you said it's like video format tutorial videos, so you did say like beauty is one of the categories there, or DIY.
Yeah, actually, I think one of the videos that the article mentioned was one of the popular ones was how to make guacamole in an avocado shell. So these are the kinds of videos that I think are being played. I'm sure like short makeup tutorials and things like that.
Yeah, and I guess, so my thought on that is actually probably slightly different from yours. So I know that I'm probably not the target demographic no matter what. I think Google probably thinks like, let's tap into the Instagram type of audience, because they have YouTube already, so they don't need people to upload video. So they're thinking like, how do we get this mobile, screen video content, and how do we provide something different from YouTube for that? But if you're producing largely that content, do you think to yourself, what would be great is if Google built something like Instagram that I could use instead?
Yeah, that is a little bit tricky. And I do find it like nowadays it's hard for platforms to really be designated platforms for that specific content, because I'll scroll through Instagram and I'll see screenshots of Twitter posts, and I'll see videos that are just uploaded off Snapchat in my Instagram story. So there's a lot of crossover there.
And TikTok really taps into the meme culture. So even though, it's not a platform for sharing like static memes, like people reproduce TikToks, like I saw one this morning, and it's a split screen, and it's of a family freaking out about something. Like you can tell they're like on a phone or something, and whoever's on the other end is obviously like revealing that they're, pregnant or got a new job, something surprising that people are happy about. But the TikTok is people have taken that video and then they put some other thing in the other side of the split screen. So the one that I watched was it was somebody that did jiu-jitsu, and they had gotten a stripe, which is like a small promotion on their white belt, and they were like showing it off, and they were acting like the other side of the screen was freaking out. So that kind of meme culture that exists inside of that, you're not going to recreate that necessarily someplace else. Like that's a TikTok now, and I think that's how a lot of these platforms form. And if you're a publisher, I think tapping into those things respectively is how that works. And I think people like Google that want to try to create their own versions of these things, or I just think that that's going to be a struggle, and unless the idea is that they're going to start indexing these things in search, which is totally possible. I still don't. I mean, they're pretty good about being very user focused. Like, if I'm searching for something, I don't know that that's how I want to get. I mean, Instagram stories, I don't know that I want those as a search result if I'm learning how to do something, honestly.
Yeah, probably not either. The next topic I have on deck today is a new survey on what influences search click-through. So this is from Search Engine Land. So this survey included 500 participants from the ages of 25 to 60, and it shows that meta descriptions followed by brand name and page title have the largest influence on whether users click through on a search result. So when asked which factor most influenced their decision, 63% of respondents said it was the description, about a quarter said it was the brand name, and 13% said it was the title. However, this is actually somewhat contradictory to the findings, because 55% of participants said that they only click on the brand they know within search results. So it also found that 2/3 of survey respondents also said that more ads would make them want to use Google less. And the majority agreed that Google is improving the search results by including featured snippets in the SERP. So this is also kind of contradictory to other findings from a different study in December. of 2018, which showed that 75% of respondents said that ads make it easier to find information they're looking for. I really wonder what kind of survey that was. I know you hate these kind of surveys, but I find them somewhat interesting, or at least entertaining at the least. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't actually hate these ones. I mean, it's a small sample of data of everybody that uses Google search, but I do think it's very interesting. Actually, for me, it's interesting to hear how people think they use search. So I think the answer to those questions would change based on almost every query, which is how Google has basically designed their algorithm, which is if you're looking up information on how to do something versus like referential information, like how old a celebrity is, or during the Super Bowl, I had to look up how tall Shakira was, because I was like, J-Lo, I don't think is really tall, but she looks quite a bit taller than Shakira, which was funny. Before, on my Safari phone, before I even finished typing the query, it gave me the answer and a snippet in the basically like people also, like not people also ask, like, you know, if you type in something in a search,
like the suggestions?
Yes, the suggestions. The answer was a snippet in the suggestion. It wasn't, I didn't even have to search it. I already had the answer.
That's kind of crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen that or noticed that.
So from a user experience standpoint, that's actually really convenient. I know that snippets and things like that are good for users, and that's why Google includes them. I won't go into like the ethics or the theory behind it, but that is a good user experience. The way that people react to ads is interesting to me. Like you said, who did this study? I think it's getting harder and harder for people to tell the difference. But that's just my opinion. I think most people either agree with that, but it just depends on how you view Google, I think, in general, in terms of like your opinion about that. But I do think that the brand name thing is interesting because I think people are thinking of it in terms of credibility. But the truth is like if you're looking for an answer for something, in a lot of cases when you're looking for something, you're hoping that somebody has written an article about something super obscure that you're trying to look up. And if you find a result that seems like it's answering that question by reading the description, like trying to think, how do you pair two JBL 5 flip speakers together and play, and pair them, was something I looked up earlier. And I was like, please just somebody have like a tutorial on how to do this that's not a video, because I just wanted to read it. And there wasn't an article on it. And I would have literally clicked on any result that made me believe that I was going to see that. And I think that a lot of results are that way. And so I don't think brand name is that important for something like that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's more of an illusion in people's heads that they feel that way.
I think when it comes to news, people feel that way. And I think that that's why you get that answer. I think Google and Facebook have a public connotation right now with fake news or, information. They almost can't be trusted. So you want to make sure, or I think just news in general. So I think people are really cautious about that and want to make sure that they specify I'm not a mark. I'm not, you can't get a swerve over on me. So that's like their whole deal is like, I want to say like I get my news from credible sources.
We're so cynical nowadays. Mm-hmm. The last topic I have on deck is Verizon Media. So they're targeting their new finance hub to millennials and Gen Z. So it's called
already off to a good start because those two generations are completely the same.
Well, it's called Cachet, and it's aimed to demystify financial literacy by using real-life stories and easy-to-use tools.
Oh, God, I hate it already, but keep going.
So current stories include an exploration on how 3 young adults are budgeting salaries between $48,000 and $55,000 a year, the effects of rising minimum wage, and exclusive data analysis on how much education debt a student can or should accrue. So the chief editor says that millennials and Gen Z face real financial challenges that earlier generations didn't. From student debt to budgeting and saving for retirement and buying a new house, they're looking for information from reliable sources to assist them as they meet these new milestones. So with the intent to inform and empower, Cachet also hosts a series of native tools mostly calculators that focus on college savings, debt, mortgages, budgeting, things like that. So I just really like this because I loved how committed they are to that target audience. I mean, just the name itself is very on brand for
Yeah.
Gen Z and millennials. Cachet, it's just kind of rolls off the tongue. But the topics they chose, I think it's neat that they included those native tools. But I mean, you already had strong opinions from the title.
Yeah, I did. And some of those have been maintained, but I'll say I hate and love a portion of this. So what I hate about it is just the punk rock in me hates everything that's very corporate-y about it, which is like even the positioning of it. Like you said, the very on-brand name. They're like, we're targeting it to millennials and Gen Z. It's like I can just anticipate what those meetings were like that they had to like come up with these ideas. That said, the content that you described I think is really great. The calculators and things like that, and then also financial literacy through the eyes of like young people that are probably just entering the workforce and like how they manage their salaries and things like that. I think that that's a genuine information that people would find helpful. And I don't know about you personally, but I'm always looking at like information online about trying to educate myself about investments, just like basically what do you do with your money? You know what I mean? In terms of if you want to save it, you want to manage it better, all those types of things. And one of the things I really struggle with is like there's very little information out there that's truly good that doesn't have some kind of inherent bias or incentive to give you information that might, like not be in your best interest for whatever reason. So that's a real struggle. And it does get me thinking about like what type of content is out there right now for people that not just financial, but there's a lot of spaces like this, like real estate and other things along those lines where it's just there's so much money in the topic or the category that it's very hard to not get corrupted by that. And so I think for publishers, it is an opportunity. In Verizon's case, my guess is it's creating a really nice vertical advertising segment that they can, truthfully, they're probably going to flip that and offer some suite of financial products through Chase Bank or something like that, where it's just like they've undone the cool thing that the content provides, right? Because now all of a sudden, if you're reading this content and you really like it, and then you're like, and then we have a new, banking program through Chase Bank or whatever, Bank of America, you immediately go, well, now I can't really rely on this. And that sucks. But yeah, I do think that there's opportunities across the board in different verticals like this for unbiased education. And you ask, how do you do that with an unbiased perspective? I hate to say it, but it's programmatic. Because then all advertising is fair on the page. They're just display ads, and those are ads that you're making money off of through a third party. It's not like Bank of America is coming to you and putting money in your pocket.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not one of those people who does a lot of research in finances, mainly because I run into the issues that you were speaking of, where it just feels like these people have an agenda. They're getting some sort of like affiliate kind of deal with.
Yeah, like even the good blogs or whatever, it's like, even if the information is unbiased, if you're sending me an affiliate link to, an app or something like that, I immediately just go, well, this might be really great information, but I have to tuck that away in this, like, now I need to go do another Google search to figure out, like, is this thing that they've recommended actually good, or is it bad, or like what are the controversies with it and things along those lines. And financial information is unfortunately a lot like other nuanced information where the answer is it depends a lot. It's just like SEO. If you're young and you're trying to invest a little bit of money and you say, is it a good idea for me to buy a government bond or something like that? The answer might be, well, it depends, so I don't know.
Right. Well, that's all I have for this week. Is there anything that you've got going on your side?
I think the big things are Pubtelligence in New York. By the time this podcast is released, we'll probably have everything up to where you can go online and apply to attend. So if you are in the New York area or would like to go to the New York area to attend one of our events that we host at Google, you can go to pubtelligence.ezoic.com and apply. And if you are watching this podcast now instead of listening to it, welcome. The we now have this podcast available in video format. We're taking clips, we put them on social media. If you're enjoying those, send us some feedback. We'd really appreciate it. We want to continue to expand the podcast in these ways, but want to make sure it's the things that you enjoy and the things that you want. So any feedback is appreciated. You can go to publisherlabpodcast.com and submit feedback. You can also access the videos, the different podcast streams, and other content that we might make available exclusively to people that want to continue the experience online. So I think that's it.
That's all.
All right, thanks for joining us on another episode of The Publisher Lab.